about 12 minutes. We timed it. We're going to tell you a little bit about the New York City market based on our statistics and what we see in the market today. And immediately after, I'm going to hand it over to Meir to speak with the panelists and listen to them, because I think they have a fantastic story, each and every one of them, about deals they're working on. We will also, at some point, open it up to Q&A. So, the first half of 2016 in New York City, we saw about $16.3 billion of investment sales transactions. That was about a 25% drop in dollar volume and about a 15% drop in transaction volume throughout the city. In terms of the sub-markets, and again, this is specifically investment sales, this is all type of product, we had a mixed bag. If you look at the specific sub-market of Manhattan dropped about 32% compared to the first half of 2018. Northern Manhattan dropped 21%, Brooklyn dropped 27%, Queens stayed flat, and the Bronx went up 23%. When you look at the development market, and now we're starting to segment each one of the different investment sales products. When you look at the development market, we also saw a drop of 48% overall in land transactions year over year in New York City. And again, here we've seen different categories and different sub-markets, where Manhattan took a dive, 85% drop compared to the year before, and the Bronx did extremely well with 70% increase year over year. So what happened? One of the things that did happen is that the condominium market is not really there for developers in Manhattan. And the flip side of it is that opportunity zones are doing pretty well in the boroughs. So of the $280 million of transactions, landed transactions in the Bronx, 64% were in opportunity zones. So in Queens, where there were $715 million of land transactions, 67% were in opportunity zones. So these are some of the factors that influenced the development market in general. Pricing for development sites was also a mixed bag. So in Manhattan below 96th Street, for example, a 20% drop. Northern Manhattan was flat. Queens and Brooklyn, a -3 to -5, not that substantial in terms of pricing drop for land. And the Bronx, again, doing well with 21% increase for an average of $87 a foot. The South Bronx specifically, some of it is an opportunity zone, is doing extremely well. Two specific transactions that come to mind are the Lightstone Group deal, which acquired 355th exterior for $125 a buildable. Opportunity zone, yes, and also developing with Affordable New York, approximately 2,000 units. 30% of them will probably be affordable. Treetop selling their site in Mount Haven to the main companies for $121 a buildable square foot, also in opportunity zones. The next sub-market or sub-segment of investment sales is the one that we speak about the most today, which is multifamily. The multifamily market didn't do well in the first 6 months of the year in anticipation for the legal rent that took place on June 14. The changes in legislation were the one thing that was on everybody's mind when we marketed properties for the first 6 months of the year. A 34% drop in volume and a 27% drop in transactions took place throughout the city. Each and every borough and submarket was hit in that sense. In terms of what happened June 15, I'm sure many of us are aware, the Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act of 2019 is going to change rent-stabilized properties and units pretty much forever, at least it changes again. You can find a summary of the Act in your folder. The biggest things, in our opinion, are the removal of IAIs, individual apartment improvements, and MCIs, which allowed a landlord in the past to increase rents with increased capital expenditures in the units or in the buildings. This does not exist today, which means that every rent-stabilized building or every rent-stabilized unit will have only RGB guideline increases, which today are 1.5% for 1 year lease and a 2.5% for a 2 year lease, and that's not enough to capture expenses. Rent control is happening elsewhere besides New York City. It's important to know that. It's happening in Berlin, it's happening in London, it's happening in California, and even in Spain. So what did it do? What did the legislation do for the first half of 2019? We said low transaction volume and low dollar volume. We also know that moving forward, pricing will change. Well, how is pricing going to change? On a very high level, when we look at a multifamily building today, and our underwriting guidelines have changed completely when we look at a multifamily building, we look at three main things. Again, on a very high level. How many rent-stabilized units are there? How deeply stabilized these units are. So what's the rent compared to market? And then we're looking also at locations, how good or bad these locations are, comparatively speaking. And what are landlords going to do in this situation? Well, the first thing they do is assess the situation, trying to understand what kind of value they lost, trying to understand how to move forward. And we also know that some big landlords already announced their capital expenditures are going to stop. Blackstone, for example, said that. They have about more than 11,000 units in Stuytown. They announced that they're reconsidering their capital expenditures for that specific complex. And that trickles down to pretty much every landlord in the city. It's going to be extremely interesting to see what is happening with pricing in the next 2 years. And we can pretty much guarantee that pricing will go down, unfortunately. Cap rates over the past decade have compressed. If you look at the chart here, up until 2018 or so, we've seen consistent compression of capitalization rates. That's not going to be the case moving forward. We believe that yields will come up as the upside potential and turning over units and increasing rents over time has evaporated from the market. So when we see here again in January, you'll see a different chart moving forward 2019. When we stand here again a year from now, you will see even a bigger difference. So from our company's perspective, it's an interesting opportunity to look at this market. There are going to be higher yields. And we're definitely ready to talk to each and every one of you as owners, capital providers, lenders, if you have any questions about how we view this market. Retail. The retail market has been challenging over the past few years, also in New York City. Some department stores that were closing, like Lord & Taylor's and Saks Fifth Avenue. On the other hand, there is some sustainability in the retail world. One of them is experience, like fitness and gyms, convenience stores, 7-Elevens, gas stations, and movie theaters, pharmacies and supermarkets, and the low price points like dollar stores and wholesale, mostly in the boroughs. What traditional retailers are doing is opening outposts and doing things that are different and aren't talking about or doing experience type of stores. So for example, Nordstrom is opening 2 outposts in the West Village and the Upper East Side. They will not carry merchandise. They will have the client pick up orders or order online. Foot Locker committed to a place on 181st Street. They offer a barbershop, sneaker cleaning, and games. What's also interesting about the commercial world, and hopefully we can help the city understand, is commercial rent control, the commercial rent control bill. Revenue is trying to work with the city to make sure that bill is not detrimental to the retail market. The retail market is suffering as it is, so we got to be very careful and watch that as well. Office market has done well in terms of transaction volume, 12% increase compared to the year before. New tenancies are coming to market. One example is life sciences, and we have Scott Metzler here that is going to talk about his building in Tasty. We have unemployment rate at 50 years low, which helps essentially businesses. Office rents are officially rising. And the one thing to watch for is that there's a lot of inventory that's going to come online in the next few years. So that could affect rent, we believe, specifically in Midtown East. Industrial and warehouse fundamentals have been good. We've seen a 184% increase year over year in the purchase of industrial warehouses. The industrial was a good counterbalance for the lack of multifamily in two of the boroughs. One is Queens and one is the Bronx. And clearly the rise of e-commerce has forced companies to get last mile distribution centers all over the city. Self-storage has been doing well over the past 6 months. 2 transactions that took place in Brooklyn, specifically in Red Hook and in Kensington, were purchased by Prime Storage and Extra Space for $100 million and $71 million as well. So when we talk about the next 6 months and moving forward, a few things that we want to pay attention to. On a macro level, the Fed is signaling 2 rate cuts which are going to essentially help our industry. In general, the financing environment today is extremely accommodating to real estate, which is one saving grace, especially when it goes to multifamily or any income-producing product. The stock market already priced it in, and we see that the S&P is at all-time high. And we know that the one headwind is the trade tensions that the U.S. has with China and other places. In general, the economy is doing well, but there's still uncertainty. On a micro level, we spoke a lot about rent regulation, and we can speak more about it, but that's what's occupying investors, owners, capital lenders' minds today. That's the number one thing that all of us are going to watch for in the next year and a half. Opportunity zones, still a big thing, and Mayor can speak about that further. We've seen the transactions, we've seen the numbers, we believe that will continue. New tenancies in New York City, a great boost for the city if it's life sciences or student housing. And rezoning initiatives, also a positive. And I know Seth has been involved in many of them when he was in the city. Rezoning initiatives, specifically in Midtown, for example, where 6.5 million square feet of new offices freed up, and JP is building their new headquarters there. Definitely a positive. Sunnyside Yard rezoning, if it happens, could be as big as Hudson Yards. And also, Robert De Niro purchasing a 5-acre parcel in Astoria, hopefully helps Long Island City and Astoria and Queens, and in general New York City. He's joining Steiner and Silvercup, and also announced that Netflix is going to join there as well. So all of that is extremely good for us in New York City in terms of microeconomics. The next 6 months of 2019, we anticipate transaction volume to stay where it is or be even a little lower. We have to remember that the multifamily market accounts for 20 to 25% of total investment sales in terms of transactions. And that market is going to stay low for a little while until people understand how to price multifamily. Pricing of rent-stabilized, specifically rent-stabilized multifamily assets, is going to soften significantly. The residential rental development in the boroughs, and specifically in opportunity zones, and because of Affordable New York, which is the tax abatement that wasn't hurt because of the new legislation, we believe will continue to do well. This pretty much concludes my presentation. I hope it was 12 minutes, and I'm handing it over to Mayor.